Today's comics market is ripe with new titles by creators who are determined to get their books into your hands. My name is Onrie. For the last decade, I've been making and selling my own creator-owned comics and dealing as a collector in live sales. My signature series, Yisun Shin, is the book that cannot be defeated in battle and has over 250,000 copies in print. Now I'm taking comics to the next level and laying the groundwork for my fellow creators to get their voices heard so they can connect directly with you. This is your chance to engage live with top comic book talent and get your comics signed without having to wait in long lines or pay any fees. But remember, we only have a limited amount of their books in stock, so always remember to call it as you see it. You're watching Virtual Signings with Onrie, the live event show. What's up, everybody? It is so good to see you guys. Welcome back. Michael Libby's in the house. Good to see you, my brother. We are still having some technical difficulties with StreamYard, and I'm trying to figure it out, but I think what I had to do was reconnect all of my channels or whatever, and I guess we'll see what happens throughout the course of the episode. It looks like some of you guys are here. Mike, what's going on, brother? Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy day. I'm wearing my Apama shirt. You guys haven't checked out Apama yet by Ted Sikora. I highly recommend picking that up. And so what have I been doing the last day? I've been taking care of invoicing. So if you guys bought anything from me this week and you are paid up, your stuff is about to go to the post office right after this episode is done. Tomorrow we are going back to our first convention post-COVID. So I am really excited about that. We will be at QuadCon in Madison, Wisconsin. I'll be running a little commercial for that at the end of this episode. And without further ado, let's bring on our guest. Our guest today is a phenomenal dude. He's responsible for this really cool book right here, 47 Furious Tales, and he's going to talk all about it. Cora, how you doing? It's so good to see you. And so without further ado, let's bring in our guest, Mr. William Samuel Quinton. How's he doing, brother?
How's it going, bro? It's good to be here again, man.
Absolutely. Last time you were on, it was like for 15 minutes. It was just like you were one of the guinea pigs to help me get virtual signings with Onrie to where it is now. So I really, really appreciate the fact that you were able to do that. And I had you on for 15 minutes, and your first issue sold out before that. And you and I agreed after that we had this success. That not only would I be reordering books from you, but that you would hit me up as soon as issue 2 came out. And now we got issue 2 hot off the press. Well, first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your work and about yourself, and just take the spotlight, if you will.
Sure. So 47 Furious Tales is my first comic book series. It's a 12-issue limited series telling the story of the Eiko incident, the story of the 47 Ronin. And we've taken that page out of Japanese history, straight out of the early 18th century, and we're telling the story with anthropomorphic animals. So we have anthropomorphic foxes and squirrels and hamsters and monkeys, and a host of characters to help bring this story to life in a fun way. So if people are fans of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or of Usagi Yojimbo, I think they're going to find a lot of
Isshu Shin.
And Isshu Shin too, yeah. You're gonna get a lot of familiar, comfortable feelings out of this. The art is done by Alexia Veldhausen. She's the principal artist on this series. The book is done in full color. We've had the Kickstarter that funded it, that's already been fulfilled. In fact, we fulfilled all of our backers, and then we went ahead and contacted you literally, like you said, when we packaged those and shipped them, and got yours out the next day. So yours is yours, and the ones for a couple of our supporting stores are the first ones outside the Kickstarter that are available to the public.
Look at that, guys. This is an opportunity. Most shops don't have access to William's books right now. And a couple things I want to say too. William is the kind of guy that if you hit him up for his books, not only will he get everything out to you in record time, but he will keep you up to date with everything. And William is extremely persistent, which I think is one of the most important things about finding any measure of success in comics. If you're shy about getting your books out in front of people, guess what, guys? They're just not going to sell. That's just how it works. That's the simple truth about it. But not only is William very persistent with getting these books out there, he's persistent with good reason. And that reason is because this book, guys, is just beautiful stuff. And these copies, by the way, I'm just realizing this right now, are not only signed by William, they're also signed by Alexia Veldhausen, who is, did I pronounce the last name correct?
Yep, Veldhausen. Yep.
Veldhausen. She signed these books too. So you guys are getting first print. This is a second printing, right? Of first.
Well, it's the first press run for that cover. Because what happened was we sold out of the. Let me show you. This is from the first Kickstarter. We produced a limited run of 500 copies of this cover, but I don't reprint covers. Okay. So when we sold out, I commissioned a brand new cover. Alexia was paid, fairly like she always is and under contract. And we went and produced a 3,000 copy press run of the cover that you're holding over there. And so when we sell out of that, if we go into a third printing, I'll actually commission a third cover and we'll go ahead and do that. So that way it helps preserve the value for collectors going forward on the secondary market.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So we already had someone claim a set of issues 1 and 2, and you also have some variants, which we'll get to in a minute.
Oh, yeah. We had some really cool variant covers, too. Yeah.
Here's what I love so much about what we got here right now, guys. We got a book that's extremely affordable and totally worth every cent that you spend on it right now. We got issues 1 and 2 signed by both the writer and artist, which is not an easy feat. Considering that people live in different states and are working together. Some people work in different countries. Yep. And William has managed to hook us up in a big, big way. So all you got to do is call it as you see it. You know what to do. Get issues 1 and 2 right now for just $10. That's it. So let's just keep going. I'm sure someone's going to pick these up. And the one thing that kind of bugged me last time when I had you on, it was just for 15 minutes. I didn't really have a chance to talk with you about, your work itself, because we both obviously have an interest in Asian history, right. Like Eastern Shin, 47 Ronin. These are stories that are extremely inspirational. And why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about what about this story drew you to not only tell it your way and, make it what it is, but also I want to know, what kind of research went into this for you? Because, it's one thing to just read some books, but it's another thing to, go further. Did you go to Japan for this? Did you read certain books? What did it look like for you? Russell, I got you on a set. So
I have been aware of this story and familiar with it since probably the mid 1980s. At that time, I was a competitive martial artist. I trained about 40 hours a week.
No way.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Shotokan is my primary art form. I also studied Bagua, Pakwa, and Tai Chi.
No kidding. Yeah.
So, for example, I had Kubido gold medal for the Junior Olympics, 4 national championships. I was actually in the team pool for the U.S. Olympic team for martial arts weapons, but that particular Olympic didn't actually end up hosting Kubido, so I never got to go to camp. But it was a cool possibility while it lasted. I have a letter from the U.S. Olympic Committee and everything that I keep locked up, so it's kind of neat. But I'd been familiar with the story, and of course, you'd seen tellings of it in various forms of cinema throughout the years. And when I was looking at finally getting into creating comics, because I've been creating role-playing games since 2017 and wanted to expand into comics, it was one of the stories that was really something I wanted to explore, because we've seen it in comics also, but there tends to be this method of telling the story where it goes from the beginning, skips 2 years, and goes to the end. And I wanted to kind of fill in the blanks, because even in the traditional theatrical performances, the live performances in Japan, they tend to kind of flow over that a little bit. And part of that's because the history of the time doesn't fill in some information that we need. So I took and I looked at the timeline. I looked at some things that were recorded as incidents that occurred during that time, and decided to fill in the blanks in that story with something that made a good logical narrative through the course of the plot of the 47 to enact their revenge. And there's a lot to it. It's not so simple as, one day we just got up, threw some ladders over a wall, and stormed over Kira's mansion. There was a lot of plotting and planning that went into this. There was a lot of subterfuge. There was a lot of manipulation of the available data. And there was a lot of effort that Kira put out to keep an eye on these folks, because he really expected that they were going to come for him. And he was right, but he never could put the information together that would tell him they were definitely going to do this. It was coming soon. He just never knew that. And in point of fact, one of the 47 was on the grounds in his own home, helping to aid in a construction project there. And he missed that piece of data completely. One of Asano Naganori's loyal samurai, who had actually married a daughter of the architect that was working on it, to make sure that he had access and was working on that project. And that's one of the key things that allowed them to get access and breach the walls to get in.
That is so cool. Okay, so for those of you guys who don't know the story of the 47 Ronin, and is it okay if I can retell it? Just because
yeah. I mean, it's a matter of history. Yeah, it's a matter of history.
I want to see how good I got it, and of course you're the expert here because you've done the research. So if I get anything wrong, let me know. But basically, what occurred was in Japan. I think this took place in the 1600s, correct?
1700s, early part of the 18th century. Yeah.
Well, I was only 100 years.
You're only 100 years off. That's not that far for history, though.
That's not so bad, right? Historically, right. It's a big difference for us. That's a lifetime, but that's 2 lifetimes, possibly.
Oh, we hope not.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Hope for the best. Expect the worst. All right, but anyway, what happened was this feudal lord was going on some business, and he was mistreated or betrayed by this very corrupt dude who basically ended up killing him, and making all of this feudal lord's subjects Ronin. And these Ronin were their lives were ruined because all Asian culture is rooted in the honorific system of who you serve, who's older than you, who's younger than you. They live by this honorific system. And what happened was these servants, these 47 servants, samurai, were now Ronin, which basically brought them down to the lowest level of living now, and they had to suck up a lot of abuse from the local people because of the fact that they were now Ronin. And in order to avenge their master, what they did was they planned this huge attack on this guy's castle. And what William was just talking about was the person who was one of the Ronin who helped figure out the architecture of the castle that they were attacking, and they went in and they killed everybody. And then after they did that, they committed ritual suicide, seppuku, and disemboweled themselves and joined their feudal lord and restored their honor. And it's a very moving tale in Japanese culture, and it's got a lot of I want to say mysticism to it. It's almost like it's a legendary tall tale kind of a thing.
Yeah, it has become very mythical in the telling. When you dive into the history of it, there's a couple of really interesting facts that come to light that when you look at the Hollywood take on it, they kind of get blown out of proportion. But one of the things that I found that was
Keanu Reeves was not in Japan. And
yeah, that I think is, that's an entirely different thing entirely. One of the things I found that was really fascinating to me as I dove into it is that the attack on Kira's mansion was far more surgical than a lot of people give credit for. So, for example, none of the women or children that were there were harmed at all. And any of the guards who would flee were allowed to flee. But as the attack was beginning, the neighboring manors were advised by one of the 47 who was riding around telling them that this was not bandits, this was a matter of honor, and that's what was going on. And so they literally basically killed everyone who was willing to stand and fight, and the remainder were allowed to escape except for Kira. And Kira literally almost got away. There's a notation in one of the old recordings of one of the live performances from the later part of the 18th century, where it's noted that the samurai, when they reached into his inner chamber, he was gone. But they knew he hadn't been gone long because his bed was still warm. And so they literally eventually found him, and I'm not going to spoil the ending of it because it's pretty graphic, but we'll get there in issue 12. It's going to be a neat part. But I think that there's so much that happens from the time that we have the onset of the incident where Asano Naganori basically is goaded into attacking Kira. And then he commits seppuku, and his retainers, his loyal samurai, vow revenge. This cadre of these loyal 47, some of whom were very young teenagers at the time, actually, including the son of Yoshio, whose last name I'm going to butcher if I try it, so we'll just call him Yoshio for now. But he is oftentimes mistakenly thought to be the youngest who was involved, but he was actually the second youngest. The youngest being a very young boy who, when all this was over, was only 13. So over the course, when this initial incident happened, when Asano died, he would have only been about 11.
Which and he was crazy, to think about that, because like even Musashi, who is like the greatest swordsman of all time, he killed his first man at the age of 12.
Yep.
And I think that just the idea of life and the way you live your life was completely different back then.
Mm-hmm.
You're I think the surviving in a time like that required you to grow up real fast. And I'm sure you saw all kinds of stuff all the time,
And there are people who took part in this incident who are remarkable for a number of reasons. There is a couple of very venerable older samurai. I mean, people who were in their 70s at the time that this occurred. And that's quite an accomplishment, one, to live that long in that era, but two, to live not as like some pampered, courtesan, but as active working samurai. One of the gentlemen, in fact, who was present not only at the incident where Kira goaded Asano into acting, but was also present on the attack on Kira's mansion. He was widely considered one of the most fearsome swordsmen who was active at the time, and really had a fierce reputation as a master swordsman.
No kidding.
Yeah, and his son-in-law, who the samurai who married his daughter, basically he chose him because he was such a renowned young warrior that he thought he was suitable to bring into the family. And so he brought him into the family to the service of Asano and their clan. And not for anything, but to put this into perspective, the samurai had a weapon, a large hammer that they would use to beat on barricaded doors. During the course of the attack on Kira's mansion, it's said that he used one of those to not only knock a door down, but crushed 3 men beneath the door that were trying to hold it.
Wow.
They say he was probably somewhere between 6'6" and 6'9", as far as he was a huge man, especially by the terms of the day. I mean, just remarkably large.
Most Asian people, and this is not, this is
I'm married to an Asian woman, so I don't say this in a way that is meant to generalize a certain culture or anything like that. But Asian people are typically known for being smaller in size. So when you hear about someone that was that tall, 6 foot something, that's
6'6" to 6'9" is the estimate. Yeah.
That's like as tall as Michael Jordan. And you imagine most people who lived, and here's the thing that's interesting, when you look at history on like a grand scale, like I was with my wife and
people were a lot smaller back then.
Yes, too. Exactly. And my wife and I, we were in Vesuvio or Pompeii. I'm sorry, in Pompeii, right over Mount Vesuvio, where the volcano erupted and destroyed the city of Pompeii. And when you look at the ashes of the remains of people, it's like a full-grown woman is probably about this. She was the size of like maybe a 5 or 6 year old child, and she was fully grown. You could tell it was a woman because she was holding her baby with her, and she was she was like, how is it called molted? Where you get covered in lava and your body's melted, but there's like the encapsulation of it is
the volcanic ash and everything that preserved them. Yeah.
So that's like, just to kind of give you guys some scope, like that's a big dude. That's like a gargantuan guy going in there and crushing someone with a hammer. I can totally believe it. So I want to do one quick thing. I just want to let everybody who is tuning in right now, I want you guys all to know we are selling books right now, selling comics.
Yes, indeed. And we got
issues 1 and 2 of 47 Furious Tales going for just $10.
Signed.
There's a set. And it's signed not only by the writer, it is signed by the artist as well, guys. This is a deal that you cannot pass up. I'm telling you guys, you will not regret this book. This is, and on top of that, you're not just getting the comics. You're getting
little something extra I sent you guys.
Look at that. Talk about incentive. Every single book comes with a small print, and these are beautiful landscapes.
Yep.
Portraits that are inside the actual book as well.
Those are both right from the pages of issue 1. The Graves of the 47, pages 2 and 3, and then a illustration of Aiko Castle as it would have looked like in the time of the incident. Now, Aiko Castle was destroyed subsequent to this, I believe, in the 19th century, but that image was done by Alexia after consulting a number of different renderings that were done from historians saying what they believed that they actually looked like. And so she was meticulous in her detail on that from what the available science is.
Okay, so now, William, I'm gonna now that I wanted to get that out of the way, now I want to ask you a question, my friend.
Sure thing.
What was the aha moment with this? Like, what was the point how did you discover the story, and how did you decide, okay, I'm gonna tell my version of it as a comic book series?
Well, this is going to sound ridiculous, so strap in a little bit. We had just got done releasing a couple of role-playing game books, and I was really wanting to get the comic side of things moving. And I have a stack of storylines over here for different titles that I want to develop, and I was looking at some, and I happened to be online, and I saw a little GIF of 2 squirrels fighting with lightsabers, and I was like, okay, that's cute, haha. And I flipped past it. And then I saw a little illustration where someone had photoshopped full samurai armor onto a little squirrel. And I was like, we could tell that story with anthropomorphic animals, kind of like they do with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, And the more I thought about it, the more I really liked the idea. Now, at first, I was going to do basically just different type of squirrels, but the problem is they would be a little difficult to distinguish. So just like in superhero comics, everyone has their own particular superhero outfit to help distinguish them. We went and we did different anthropomorphic animals to make things a little more easy to distinguish between characters. And I talked about it a little bit with a friend of mine, and then I went and took it to the work group that I have in Facebook for the artists that I commissioned. There's a whole team of them on there. And there were several ideas I wanted to put out. And Alexia, who's a fierce samurai fan, jumped in and immediately claimed 47 and wanted to start work on it right then. And a couple of weeks later, we had that first iconic cover, I have something to share about that. This is the original inked page for the first cover of 47 Furious Tales issue 1.
That's awesome. That is beautiful. Do you hang it up?
Yeah. I took stuff down because I was moving stuff around in the office. I've got to get things reorganized and rehang stuff here soon because I added a whole set of new things to hang up here from issue 2 and from some of the RPG works we've got going on. So it's been a lot of fun.
That
was kind of that aha, push the button and go kind of moment. What
was it that connected you directly? Because I mean, you see samurais with animals, but why particularly? How did you discover the story of the 47 Furious Ronin? 47 Ronin? Was it through your experiences in martial arts?
Right. It was part of the studies that I was doing back in the 80s. Because of course I read like the Book of Five Rings. I read The Art of War. I read several tales of Japanese and Chinese legendary figures and historical figures. And the story of the 47 Ronin is one of those that comes up pretty much any time you dive into that type of research pursuit. And so I've been aware of it for a pretty long time. And actually, when you look at a lot of philosophy texts regarding how one behaves in that society, the Eiko incident comes up as a very divisive one, because on one hand, people say, well, they acted as a samurai should, but then on the other hand, they were specifically disobeying the orders of the shogun, which is something a samurai shouldn't do. So it's very polarizing in that regard. And it's up to you yourself to make the determination of were they right ethically or were they wrong ethically. And we're not going to make that judgment in this series. We're going to basically put it forward as true a telling as we can make it. We are taking a few liberties filling in the blanks in the historical record, but we're not doing anything really extraordinary. Like you won't find mysticism in here or magic or anything like that. The big thing that's outside of the norm is the use of the anthropomorphic animals. If we changed them into people, it would be just like real life.
It would just be like everything else. And I know that Dark Horse put out their own version of the 47 Ronin, and Mike Richardson, the publisher, he went to Japan, and I guess there was some kind of ceremony that you do where you carry the 47 heads or something like that, or you pay tribute to the 47.
Right. There's a ceremony done every year where people go through and they pay their respects at the shrine where they're interred.
Yeah. So he did that, and he had Stan Sakai do the artwork for the book. It felt kind of, and I, of course, never want to say anything poor about it because it's a large body of work, and it's Stan Sakai, like
right.
Usagi Ojimbo, the artist of that, drawing the story of the 47 Ronin. I like your take on it more, if I'm being honest, and I'll tell you why. I like the art, and I like the angle that you took with this, because every time you hear the story, it always starts the same way, where like Lord Asano dies. It's like that's
right.
What happens in issue 1,
and we back up way before that.
Exactly. Yeah. So issue 1 takes place long before that. There is some great action sequences in this first issue. We see some guys get cut up really bad, it's beautiful. Can I show the action scene? Is it okay?
Yeah, certainly. And
guys, a monkey get his head cut off for only $10.
And I also sent a copy of the first press run to Sakai as kind of my gratitude for the work that he's done, because he's been such an influence over the years. So we made sure that he got a copy of issue 1 out of the first press run.
And he's great. And again, the way I look at it is this, because last year I discovered that there's a Korean artist. He was actually somebody that we were in the process of reviewing as a potential fill-in artist for Yisun Shin, and it just didn't work out. My editor wasn't like, we decided he wasn't the right fit for the book. Well, what did this guy do? He made his own Yisun Shin book, and So now there's 2 Eastern Shin books. Well, so what? That's his take, and now we got our take, and you have your take, and Dark Horse has their take, and and each one is different. Even though it's the same story, it's like you guys see stuff being retold all the time. Bram Stoker's Dracula, Frankenstein, all these classic horror stories are retold, redone. But I think it's the way you do it. I think it's the focus on it. I think it's the fact that you're bringing in an outside perspective that I think is very unique. You have a martial arts background that allows you to understand the tradition and the importance of the legacy of the story. Like, you get why this is so important naturally because you've been around it for so long. And I feel the same way about Eastern Shin, because my background in martial arts was Taekwondo, and I actually went to Korea and trained for a little bit, and I put in my time over there too, it's one of those things where these stories are so incredible because people had to live. They lived and died by their word in that period, and that's an amazing, like, nobody does that anymore. It's like it's not people don't live the same way now that they did back then. Like all of Oriental cultures, every single one, the one thing they have in common is this sense of honor, the sense of doing what's right, following a certain code in order to perfect your life in essence. And it's I think the closest we'll ever get to seeing what a Jedi is in reality. And you've studied martial arts, so let's talk martial arts a bit. When it comes to martial arts, I've always found that you get stronger by pushing yourself.
Exactly.
It's not like you get further ahead because you're doing great in class every time you go. You get stronger because you go on the days when you don't. You get stronger because you're in a lot of pain and you keep going anyway. It doesn't matter that your leg is bruised up and you've been kicked 100 times and you just want to lay down and not do anything. It's the fact that you still get up there, you still go through the motions, because that's what makes you stronger. Once those bones heal, once everything comes back, you're stronger. So exactly. I've taken that philosophy to making comics. How has that philosophy helped you with your production? And are you taking that mindset to what you're doing with your book now?
I think the strongest indicator on that is that when we first brought 47 Furious Tales to Kickstarter to fund its production, it didn't fund. And so we worked on it, and we brought it back, and it funded the second time. When we brought issue 2 to Kickstarter the first time, right at the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't fund. But we worked on it, and we worked on it, and we worked on it. And when we brought it to Kickstarter the second time, it funded. And so it's a determination to succeed, to learn from previous failures and previous mistakes, and to keep going to attain that goal, to attain that ideal. And then there's also, alongside that, there's a little bit of an ethical consideration, because one of the things with indie comics that you'll hear a lot of people complaining about is artist pay. But you actually don't hear that from the artists that I've been working with, because we use the Kickstarter revenues and subsequent sales revenues and everything to make sure we're paying our artists fairly, which is how we managed to get Alexia Veldhausen to commit to the full 12-issue series. So we won't be looking for another artist to fill in on, say, issue 6 or issue 7. She's already committed to the full 12 issues, which I think is where you want to be when you're creating. You want to make sure that your artists are able to be artists, and they're not necessarily having to make up more time by filling in with hundreds of extra commissions or whatever to make ends meet. You want to make sure that they're being paid fairly, on time, promptly, and keep them as busy as you can with the projects that you're working on. I think that's a big way to kind of show the same reverence and respect that the daimyo of old showed to their samurai retainers. You have to make sure they're provided for. And I think that's one of the ways you earn loyalty and respect of your artists, just the same way as the daimyos earn the respect of their samurai.
we've conducted business already on 2 occasions. Now I'm having you here on the show, and I have to say that from my dealings with you, you absolutely attest to what you're saying. You're very prompt with everything, which is something that I'm sure now it all makes sense with your martial arts background, because this is what we learn, right?
Right.
It's about building. Martial arts isn't about building a strong person. It's about building a strong character. It's not about being the strongest person in the room or the guy who can kick everybody's ass. It's about being the person with the best character. That's the person who excels the furthest. And again, like I said, that's what I noticed about you. And just the presentation of the books themselves. Guys, these are beautiful books. And once again, we're at the halfway mark. All right, we got 25 minutes left, and we still got a few of these sets here. We're doing Furious Tales, 47 Furious Tales, number 1 and 2, for just $10, $5 a pop. Both copies are signed by the writer and the artist. Now, William, you got some. We got some variants here too, and these are going for cover price. So tell us about these variants and what inspired it.
Okay, so I am a huge fan of Fernando Ruiz, who has done a lot of work on Archie, Betty, and Veronica. He's done some Betty Page covers. He's done just a whole host of work over the last 20 plus years in comics. And he's an instructor at the Kubert School. And I had a lot of backers from issue 1 who had asked if we could do some variant covers. And I had met Fernando one time. And so I thought, it can't hurt. I mean, many of his students who he's friends with actually work for me doing commissions and whatnot. I'll reach out to Fernando and see if I can talk him into doing a cover. So I reached out to Fernando, and he was very willing. Of course, he wanted to know if I had someone to color. And I said, well, if I have someone color, it's usually Nick Capone, who's also an instructor at the Kubert School. And he actually works hand in hand with Fernando on most of his covers anyway. And so that fell into place very, very nicely. And the financials were there. We went ahead and got that done in advance and paid well in advance of the Kickstarter, all that lined up. But I wanted to have a little bit of variety in the cover types. And Paul Walcott, who does a lot of work on manga titles, and does work for Viz and a few other folks, who's a dear friend of Alexia's, and I'm hopefully growing to be a friend of mine as well, because I think he's a really awesome person as well as an artist, was available and willing to do a cover as well. And so we talked about it. We came to terms pretty easily and got that done. And just as we did with Fernando, I went ahead and paid him. Which cover did he do? Is it that's the Fernando Ruiz one.
This is the Fernando Ruiz.
That's the Fernando Ruiz cover, and that was colored by Nick Capone. And then the one with the moon on it is by Paul Walcott. And yeah, Paul does, like I said, Paul does a lot of manga work as well. So I think there are some elements of that come through in that cover. He did an absolutely remarkable job on that as well. And point of fact, to give you an idea, not to beat this up too much, but I framed one of the prints for my
Dude,
wall.
You know what? Look, you see here, right there. This is all artwork from Yushin that I have framed in my office. Yeah. You should be proud of that. That is what martial arts teaches us, right? Is to to honor yourself as well. When you achieve something, you gotta splay it out. Like it not only, I think, inspires us to want to do better work as we pursue other projects, but you have every reason in the world to be prideful of this. And I'll tell you how I came across 47 Furious Tales. I was in I actually discovered the book through Indiegogo. Mm-hmm. And I came across it and I'm like, this looks freaking awesome. I want to back this. I want to get copies of it. And I got my reward. I read the first issue and I'm like, okay, I need to stop this now. And I was able to reach out to you. And that's the best aspect of, getting you guys on here, all creators, is that, I've been dealing now for the last 2 to 3 years. I still can't open up an account with Diamond because they're so inundated with everything going on that no one has gotten back to me. So even if I wanted to carry new comics, which I do, I can't right now until they actually get back to me and set up an account. Right. Whereas with you, I can contact you directly. And to be honest with you, I may just stick there, just stick to this, because a lot of our viewers, they're more interested in engaging with you guys than they are necessarily going into the comic shop and buying what's new every week, because they have their LCSs, they have their places where they can go. What they can't do is engage with creators like you, because maybe they're, well, right now, because conventions are not on, but even when conventions are in place, a lot of creators aren't necessarily traveling all over to all 50 states for, conventions. I know I don't. I hit maybe, anywhere between 12 and 20 cities per year. And that's a lot, especially even if it is a full-time job, it's really hard to do that. And I think it's really great that you can get out here, and especially the fat guys, again, you can get these variant covers right now for cover price as well. So if you wanted all 4, Furious Tales, you could get them all for $20. And here's the thing, we're down to only 2 sets left of these issue 2 variants. Mm-hmm. And they're both signed again. Now this is just signed by you. We didn't get these.
We didn't get those signed by Alexia, unfortunately. So sorry about that. But yeah, they're signed by me.
Yeah.
Whereas the others are signed by both of us.
It makes perfect sense, But again, the people you had do this really brought some clout with them, and this is these are creators that if you see them at a convention, you bring them a copy of the book, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to sign it for you, knowing that you're supporting an independent creator who is making it on their own. So what was the point now where you decided, okay, I'm gonna self-publish this? Like, did you try taking this to anybody else, or was it just pretty clear to you that, like, no, I want to own this?
When I started Sonoma Publishing, it was because I had come to a point in my life where I wanted to build something I could hand down to the kids. I wanted something that could, help better our lives, better our livelihood. And so I decided that I was going to start my own publishing company, because I'd written for years. I'd had a couple of bad experiences with, we'll say, some unscrupulous people. Okay. And we'll leave that at that. People who didn't want to use contracts, people who thought it was okay to write bad checks, things like of that nature. You've probably heard the horror stories before.
Sure.
And so it had been years since I had written anything. But I had a lot of stuff that I had worked on just for me and my friends, and got back into releasing RPG stuff through Kickstarter and publishing it myself. And I realized that, having gone back to my experience, because I used to own a comic shop for a while before I sold it to a friend of mine.
You owned a comic shop?
Oh, yeah, I owned a comic shop for a while.
What was it called?
Heroes Retreat. It was in Richmond, Kentucky. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up selling it to a friend of mine. I was having some marital troubles at the time, and I sold it to a buddy of mine so I could focus on my relationship, and that still fell apart anyway. But, things that happen. But I learned a lot from that with regard to being on that side of the counter. And so that's one reason that when I go to shop owners and people who are going to be buying things in bulk, I have my price point set so that I know that they have plenty of margin left where they're making money too. Right. And that's important, because as a self-publisher, and you could probably attest to this, one of our biggest expenses is shipping, So for me, if I can get books, on your show, or if I can get books to a store in Texas or Florida, what have you, and get to, 15, 20 books or so, then it's pretty easy for that shipping to get spread across that number of books and put it on the shelf to where retailers are also able to go ahead and sell it at a price that's not grossly inflated. Because one of the problems right now in indie comics is people are saying, yes, here's my 28-page book. It's $12, take it or leave it. And people can't carry that on the shelf because then all of a sudden you need to sell a book for $15-16 at least. And that's without even taking in your sales tax calculations. And that's just not particularly viable. Maybe you can do it for trades, but definitely not for floppies. And so one of the things I learned early, because, that first press run, 500 copies, I thought, I don't know if I can really move 500 copies or not. And then they went. And what happened that really precipitated is that I went to my first con as a vendor, and I had one copy that I kept in hand, and I would just say hi to people who were looking at comics. I'd put that book in their hand, and as soon as they felt it, they wanted to open it. Because the viewers here can't tell, but this book is printed on the highest grade paper that I can get my hands on. So that's a 130-pound cover. It's got a really sexy finish to it, 80-pound paper. And the idea is to produce the highest quality merchandise possible. And so when I put it in people's hand and they're like, okay, how much is it? And I tell them it's $5. And they're like, how'd that happen? Yeah. I mean, which is, the same thing the viewers hear, like, hey, we're getting signed books for $5 plus a print. Sign me up, right?
and here's the thing. People are going to claim this after hours too. And we're going to bring it on to our live sales show. So
that's assuming you have any left by then.
Yes, assuming I have any left by then. And here's the beautiful thing about it. I actually have an observation I'd like to point out to you, because
sure.
The more I talk to you, the more respect I have for you, because when I got into comics and I decided to pursue the path I did with Yi Sun-shin, it was because I wanted to set myself apart from my contemporaries. I wanted to tell stories about heroes. Right. And when I discovered Yi Sun-shin, I was like, that's going to be something different, because writing a superhero story, it's not that it's impossible, but it's not easy. If you want to do a good superhero story, I mean, you got a lot of competition, and to go and write for the big two. Not saying again that it can't be done, that there are no good stories that can be told, because we're constantly proving that there are great stories that can be told. But I think what I wanted to do as a creator was really stand out. And there were so many things that I overlooked over the years, because I never approached comics as from the collector standpoint, because I was always told from the outside, the collector's market's really small. It's minute. It almost doesn't exist. It's a dying thing. 50 years from now, all these comics are going to lose their value. Nobody is going to care anymore, and that's going to be it. So what did I focus on? I focused on exactly the same things you did. I focused on my price points, staying competitive with Marvel and DC in terms of like drawing the line at $2.99 with my books, and keeping it there, and going even further with the discounts, because I printed in much higher in much higher quantities.
Right.
Now, taking it to you came, and then eventually I became a dealer, and I realized, hey, this collector's market that everybody says is so small and dying is actually pretty big.
Yes.
It's so big that it's actually what's been putting food on my plate and a roof over my head for the last 6 months. So, and I know that the sky's the limit with it, because, maybe today I sell $5 to $10 worth of comics, but tomorrow I could sell thousands of dollars worth of comics, because you get the right customer in. Now, you came at it from the opposite way I did. You started as a guy who had seen what dealing is like. Owning your own shop gives you a really strong sense of what's going on. And here's the thing: as a dealer, you kind of learn it, like what sells, right? Like I look at certain titles, like here's a great example, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a book that I can't keep in stock. I got tons of people who want Wonder Woman. Every time I get it, it's gone. Same thing with Spawn. But you get some other alternative books, and maybe something that is not necessarily like a mainstream concept, and it doesn't move. And sometimes there's something that should be like a surefire sell, like Harley Quinn or Deadpool, and it just sits there.
Yep.
So you saw all this, and you know what comics sell and which ones don't. As a store owner, you know that. So
And I still took the hard part and did a niche title.
The hard part. And that's my question to you. Like, you knew all this, yet you still went down this path, because this is not easy. The research is not easy, guys. Like,
right.
Making sure all the details are correct, even if you're using animals, you can't mess this stuff up. There's a really great example of this. I'm going to just pull up the book because it's right here. I'm about to send this out, actually. True Believer, The Rise and Fall of Stan Lee.
Yep.
So I read this book.
I haven't read it yet, but I hear it's really good.
It is really good, but it misinforms the reader on multiple occasions, not intentionally, of course, but because the guy writing the book didn't understand what certain people said about Stan Lee. And when you get to that point where it's such an obvious mistake, it detracts the what's the word I'm looking for? The not validity. What's the word I'm looking for? That I hate the fact that it's that word that's on the tip of my tongue that I can't.
Yep.
You just don't take it as seriously now, because the facts are not presented correctly. And I've gotten people come back to me at certain points at certain conventions and things like that, where they're like, "Oh, Yi Sun Chin, he didn't actually go out and fight." It's like, well, you were there. You were there in 1597, and you saw what happened. No, you weren't there. You just have your perception of what happened. You don't know what happened. People back then, in particular, were capable of tremendous things because they lived by this code. Everything in life was this code. So I think that the amount of research that goes into books like this is just it's an immense undertaking. And it's not the same thing as doing a sci-fi story, because there are more liberties you can take.
True.
And yet you chose this path. Why? Like, why did you make it harder for yourself? I mean, you went down the path less. I've approached artists at conventions, and I was like, hey, I'm writing a book. Where is it set? Asian history. No, thank you. I don't want to draw samurai stuff. I don't want to do anything. Right. I've seen artists just back away. They don't want to deal with that. Why?
Well, let's take it like this. If you're going to undertake something and you're going to want to try and create something in a medium that you have a lot of respect for, would you feel better about yourself if you took an easy path? Or would you rather try something difficult, overcome the adversities, build something of quality, and then let your work stand? Keep in mind, my very first comic title, jump in the deep end of the pool, sink or swim, right? So if I'm going to build something beautiful, I should require of myself that I put the work in to try and make it so. I should be willing to take the hard knocks and make the effort. Because if I'm not willing to do that, how can I expect someone to make the effort to read my book? Right?
That's exactly why I did it. It's like, and you think about that too. It's like you're traveling. It's almost like kind of like the whole point of martial arts in the first place. If you're not challenging yourself, you're not growing. You're not developing, right? And that's not to say that I think anybody who decides that they're making a comic is pissing against the wind in a sense at first, because
it's hard.
It's hard. You're going to get rejected. You're going to have problems with your production. You're going to learn things, and it's going to cost you money. It's all kinds of things are going to happen. It's an uphill battle, and it never levels out. Even when you make it, you're still going uphill. Like a great example of that is I don't know if you guys saw the Toys That Made Us episode of Ninja Turtles, but like, you look at Ninja Turtles and you think of Kevin Eastman, and you're like, well, that guy made it, and he's doing great. He must be. But I'm sure there's points where he kicks himself in the head and thinks to himself, well, you know what? If I didn't do this thing here, I would be so much further ahead. Or Peter Laird, like if Peter Laird didn't sell his share of Ninja Turtles, what would it be worth today?
Right.
Would it be worth the same, or would it be worth less because he didn't, it's not necessarily what those guys did with those comics. It's what the people who bought the property from them, what they did with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you look at something like this, in particular, you know, it's not about what's happening today. You're doing the hard work now, so that down the road, when someone comes across this in the future, they see something that they want. And speaking of which, guys, we got 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left on the show. We're doing both issues for just $10. They're both signed by the writer and artist. Issues 1 and 2 of 47 Furious Tales is going for just $10. Call it as you see it. And here's something I'm going to tell you right now, guys. I know that from the people that picked up issue 1, they're definitely going to want issue 2. So if we don't sell through these sets right now, we're going to be reaching out to those folks here. And once we do sell out of this stuff, we'll come back to William. But if he's sold out of stuff, and this guy knows how to move comics, we may not be able to stock them. We may not be able to get it. So I highly recommend you call it as you see it. So
we just to give you an idea, like I said, we finished shipping the Kickstarter stuff last week, and then not counting the stuff we shipped to you this week, we shipped 84 copies. So it's been a good week.
That's fantastic. That's excellent. And it's such an inspiration to have you here, because tomorrow I'm going back to my first convention. And I'm trying to sell 700 books over the course of 2 days. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know what to expect. It may not be possible at all. But it's the idea of going into, it's kind of like what they teach us in martial arts, right? You go in with this intent to challenge yourself to the max. And if you make it, well, then great. But at least if you go down, you went down trying and you did your best. And whatever the case is, you come out with more experience. When you told us about your Kickstarter, your early Kickstarter experiences earlier, that was really moving to me, because not a lot of people want to admit that they had failed Kickstarters. You know, I've had failed Kickstarters. I've had many successful ones, but I've had my share of failed ones too. Yeah, and that's got to suck, because all the preparation, all the stress, all the everything. I mean, and not just that, but the out-of-pocket expense from getting all the work done in advance for all the artwork and everything else. Yeah, I mean, it can really set you back. But you can either let it hold you back, or you can keep going forward, and you can keep working to make the best materials you can. And I think in the long run, if you accept the fact that you're never defeated, you're never beaten until you actually surrender and stop trying, I think you can do anything. I agree with that. You know, it's interesting. Jesse James, I had him on Live with Onrie, my interview show, before I ended it, and I'll be bringing it back eventually. But when I had Jesse James on there, and he's one of the lead architects of CBSN and the experience. You know, one of the things he said is you're not out of this game until you decide you're out of this game. Mm-hmm. And I took his words so serious. Like everything he said to me was really interesting, because what I was trying to do initially as a dealer was to build up this nice nest egg so that I could, you know, have like a nice reserve. But you can't sell comics unless you're buying comics. Right. So immediately after I had Jesse on, I thought the only thing I could think about for the next day or two was I need to buy a comic lot. Like I need to have lots of comics. And sure enough, a lot showed up, and we made this purchase, and that's where we got, you know, the first say third of our collection. And that's really like it's taking those steps forward. It's stepping out of that comfort zone and diving in and trusting yourself that, you know what, you're going to make it, because you know that you're in it for the long haul. You're not going to quit because you're planning to push forward. That's very inspiring. So. And I mean, it's if you're going to get into comics, or if you're going to get into RPG stuff or any other type of creative endeavor, you gotta have to accept that sooner or later you're going to have a setback. It's just going to happen. And so they might slow you down, but you can't let them stop you. I agree with that. Just got to keep going. Just pushing forward.
And I'll tell you the other thing too, and this is something that I find the more and more that I put stuff out. If your focus is on quality and you're trying to learn how to improve that quality constantly, that's one of the things you have to focus on, because the better quality stuff you're putting out, I think the better your fans appreciate it. So that's why, you know, you've had issue 1 before, you've held it in your hand. We're committed to staying to that same product type. I've got another series that's going to be starting in January that I'm pairing up with Nick Capone on, which is a fantasy series. It's going to not be a limited series. It's going to be an ongoing series. And we're going to bring that to the world through Kickstarter in January. And really looking forward to that, because we're going to have the entire book done by the time we launch. And we're going to put it on the same high quality papers we do for 47. We're taking the same care with the detail. Obviously, the art styles can be different because we have different artists, but I mean, it's the same attention to being consistent through the art. And then there's other titles that, as funding becomes available, as these titles pick up, we'll be bringing even more. And so, just like what you said here about, you know, looking for other comics, for me, it's looking for the money to bring more titles into circulation, with the idea eventually being able to get to the point where we're not just releasing one every 3 months, but we're releasing one, getting it out, launching campaigns for the next, and getting that out, to eventually where we get to the point where a campaign isn't just one book. It's, here's the books we're releasing this quarter, pick the ones you want, and we're shipping them, and funding our production runs, our press runs that way, with all of our work done in advance. And we're probably a few years away from that. But I think so long as we keep our quality high and keep our production schedules, I think we have a real shot of putting out as many as a dozen titles in a year.
You know, I have no doubt that you'll achieve this. And William, we're at the end of our hour here, and I honestly feel like we just scratched the surface. I want to say right now that this is not the last time I want to see you on here. I'm going to bring you back on the EXP at some point.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Is there, if you have any last words you want to say to everybody this afternoon, please go ahead. I'm going to give you the spotlight here.
Yeah. Actually, I want to thank all of our Kickstarter backers, all of our Indiegogo backers, because as you guys have heard, making comics is not cheap. And I'm committed to making sure that I pay our artists a fair wage under our contracts. So I want to thank all of them for their contributions that made these issues possible. Definitely go ahead and get these copies from Onrie. They are legitimately signed by me and the artist, and you've got some nice prints that go along with them. They're on the highest quality papers I can provide. Quick shout out to Alexia Veldhausen for all her great work on this on these copies, on these issues. I'll get it out eventually. Fernando Ruiz, Nick Capone, Mariano, who did the flatting for Nick, and then of course Paul Walcott. And also a quick shout out to Anthony Ojeda, who did the art for my most recent D&D adventure, which is Death Comes to Glenfollow. Anthony is actually now available for commissions, so if you are looking for an artist, Anthony Ojeda is one of the tops. He's absolutely phenomenal, so I recommend him always. And then go ahead and like I said, pick up 47 Furious Tales here today. Get them to you. They are in top shape, really high quality books. You won't be disappointed.
And we sold another set. Someone messaged me and they said they want another one. So folks who are interested and are following us can get issue 1. We still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 copies of issue 1. I have actually I have 7 copies of issue 1. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 5 copies of issue 1 left, or issue 2 left. So we got the variants still in stock, and we got 7 copies of issue 1. So I have a feeling these books are going to fly, and I'm so excited for you. Please keep me up to date with everything that's going on.
You know it.
Just supporting you, man.
You know it. Thanks for having me on. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much. Take care, my brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, folks. So we are gonna we're gonna go right now. I got to run over to the post office, and I packaged up everybody's books who picked up stuff for me. So Joe, you got a package coming to you. Mr. Libby, you got a package coming to you. Russell, you got a package coming to you. Everybody who is paid up has their stuff on the way. And as soon as I come back to the warehouse, we're going to have another guest who is also doing a martial arts book, and we're going to be on the EXP, the experience. So if you haven't yet, be sure to like the experience on Facebook, and it's just _experience or _EXP. And we got Christopher Marin of Peerless coming on. And this is a really cool book right here. It was also funded on Indiegogo. It is Kung Fu Action. It's really cool stuff. We're going to talk with the creator. His book is also sold out on our live sales show, so I'm really excited about that. Travis, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Love you too, man. I got a lot of respect for what you're doing in comics. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And then after we're done with virtual signings today, I am going home, getting probably not going to get any sleep, but just getting ready for this, my first convention. And I'm so excited because the Midwest has been pretty strict about having any kind of venue for comic events. And so this is the first event that I was able to find out about and get involved with. And I'm really excited. We got Hunter Killer will be over there. We got 10 short boxes full of dollar books. I have bundle sets prepared of really cool runs. We got graphic novels at 50% off. We got keys that'll be on display over there too, and we'll be hunting while we're there. But the primary goal of our of doing this show is bringing Yisun Shin back to the front lines and starting to move those books, because in order to keep the series alive, we need to sell books. That's how it works. You can't make comics unless you're selling comics. So thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you in just 2 short hours on the EXP. I'm going to run a quick commercial, and then that is it. So I will see you guys soon. Be here for Peerless. We got 5 copies signed by the creator, Mr. Marin. Sign these books right here. It is fantastic. Jump on it. I will see you in 2 hours. And if you're interested in 47 Furious Tales, hit me up. We got issues 1 and 2 going for just $10. Call it as you see it. I got you covered. Take care, guys.
Onrie is coming back. Be sure to check out our first in-person appearance this weekend at QuadCon in Madison, Wisconsin at East Town Mall. There will be free entry for the event. See you there.